Right, welcome to another whisky circus. Today we've gone back to another English distillery and we've got Abbie from Cooper King along with Sophie, hopefully going to have a chat with us today. We normally can't keep her that quiet, so I'm sure she'll have plenty to say. But what I'd like to do now is introduce you to Abbie and let Abbie explain who she is, what they do, and then we'll go into some questions from there. But so over to you, Abbie. Please introduce yourself.
So I'm Abbie Nielsen. I'm co-founder and head distiller of Cooper King Distillery. So we are a small, independent, family-run whiskey and gin distillery. We're based just north of York, 9 miles from York. And we have got, we've been making whiskey, it's coming up to a year old now. So we've been making whiskey for a year, we're making gin for a couple of years up to this point. So it's founded by myself and Chris, and it's pretty much born from an adventure to Australia. So in 2019, in 2014, I just qualified with a PhD about 6 months prior, and Chris just got his architectural degree. So between us, we had like 14 years of study. At the point where we were kind of looking at the rest of our lives, lots of our friends were starting to settle down, buy houses, start families. And, we'd been together for about 9 years, I think, at that point. But we just weren't quite ready to settle. We didn't really enjoy our jobs. And we decided to shake it up a bit. So we quit, we left our careers, and we bought one-way tickets to Australia. So we kind of went with like backpacks, a ukulele, off on a bit of an adventure with no plan. We didn't know if we were going to stay or come home. And we landed in Tasmania. So if you know nothing about Tasmania, just know that it is a beautiful island state just off the south coast of Oz. It's famous for its wilderness, its food, its wine, and now its whiskey. At the time that we landed there, nobody really knew Australia was kind of making whiskey at that time. The first distillery had cropped up in like 1989. So it'd been making whiskey since the 90s, but hadn't really taken off. And we joined Tassie at the time when it was just Sullivan's Cove won world's best single malt whiskey. So like suddenly this just hit the news, like was everywhere. And Chris used to work for the guys at Master of Malt back when they first started, and we got in touch. And kind of keen, opportunistic backpackers. We were like, do you want us to go visit? We'll kind of visit all these distilleries. We'll see Sullivan's Cove. We'll report back. Maybe we can taste some whiskey and take it from there. And so they actually jumped on the chance, and they wanted us to just like to visit. It was all 8 operational distilleries at the time. And they offered to pay our expenses, which was brilliant because at the time we were just scrubby little backpackers. We had no money. We were fruit picking. So this was a proper treat for us. We'd rock up in our clapped out old banger of an estate car, which we'd been sleeping in, to these distilleries who had thought we'd been flown in especially from England to interview them. So they pulled out all the stops, brought their head distillers in off from their Easter holidays. So we got full behind the scenes access, which was awesome. At the time we were drinking whiskey, but we didn't really know much about it or how it was made. So for us to kind of discover these really small producers who didn't for the most part had no background in the industry, they hadn't been to Heriot-Watt, they hadn't done a degree, they just kind of set it up out of a passion. Some of them have been over to Scotland to train, others have just kind of done it off their own back. So these guys were, small, awesome, really inspirational, making quite innovative whiskies on like quite a different kind of scale to Scotland. And it was there, I think for us, it was the fact that these guys were, it was kind of craft. I know craft is a bit of a taboo word at the moment, but all we knew of whiskey was big multi-million-pound Scottish distilleries that were churning casks out. These guys, it was really small. They seemed to look after every single cask, and it was the focus on flavour and provenance, without any like marketing bullshit, over like volume and reach. So we just were totally blown away. Fell in love, had the crazy idea that we'd start our own distillery, but back in England at this time. So we decided we'd come home and start it there. And then that snowballed into 2 years of us continuing our travels throughout Australia, but training our noses, researching. We did loads of experience at various different distilleries there. We did whisky school there. We were taught by Bill Lark, who was a founder of, or pretty much the godfather of Tasmanian whiskey, founder of Lark Distillery. And he was quite instrumental in helping Sullivan's Cove set up. So it was, you know, in part sort of him that they managed to win the award as well. So we were really fortunate that we had this wealth of knowledge that we could then bring back to York, which is where we set up. It's my hometown. So fast forward a couple of years, you know, self-built the distillery, crowdfunded it because at the time we had no money. So we pulled various different resources together, managed to fund it. We got some innovation grants as well to help fund the equipment, because I'll talk about our still later, but that's pretty unique. And now, yeah, we've got whiskey in cask. The new make is tasting awesome, and we're selling that. I'm really proud of that. Obviously, you know, Sophie's joined us, so Sophie is distilling for me as well. So, you know, starting to hand the reins over, which is awesome. So yeah, we've got loads of awesome plans for the future, but we're just starting out for now.
Brilliant. What I'll do there,